Hello, A-Man here, back with another segment on the BB valve design, BB machine gun. Today we're going to be looking at the BBV submachine gun, which is virtually identical to the full-blown machine gun. It's only different in a couple of minor ways. Again, this one's simpler than the full-blown machine gun. Other than that, parts are exactly the same. We'll go ahead and break her down. I believe I did mention in a previous segment that we were going to show you the guts on this one too, and disappoint you once more with the with what it is. And it comes apart in a similar manner to the machine gun. And while I'm taking this apart, just another quick safety reminder: don't shoot anything that ricochets. That is even more important with a BB machine gun than a Red Ryder. If you do that with a BB machine gun, you'll shoot both eyes out and slap yourself in the pee-pee about 20 times before you can get off the trigger. So yeah, don't be silly. This one here, we just take this bolt out, and the bolt just kind of holds everything together and also provides a backup for the tension on the set screws. So that's about it for that. And there we go. And then the whole thing just slides right out. Well, it will as soon as I take the magazine out, which we're going to talk about today. Today we're going to talk about the magazine and the diaphragm specifically. Okay, there we go. And there it is. This has been modded and modded, remodded so many times. I finally lost all my tolerances and it ceased to function. So it's sad because it was really fun. One of the things I learned on this is this started off to be a full-length machine gun, like the BBV full-blown machine gun, and it didn't function. I hadn't determined why at that time. All I knew was my proof of concept had a shorter barrel and operated just fine. So I went back to basics and made it more like an improved version of my proof of concept, which it is. A word about super glue. Super glue gel is useless for this project, really. I found that when I had layers, there's actually, I don't know if you can see right here, in the end of the barrel, there's actually two layers of brake tubing here. And the nice thing about the liquid, the watery super glue, is capillary action will suck it in and count to 10 and let go, and it's like over with. It's done, it's glued, it's cemented. And so I discovered that when I was working on this. And so, of course, I did that to both ends to lock the barrel liner into the barrel sleeve, the barrel shroud. And then later on, when I decided I was going to cut the barrel off to make some kind of progress, since I hadn't figured out why the long barrel didn't work yet, unfortunately, I lost that glued end that was part of the drop piece that I cut off. And the other end broke loose, and I lost, and it came loose. And there's, a series of holes right in here where the feed pin, the operating pin, moves up and down. And so there's two layers here, and then a hole here, and a smaller hole in the bottom of this. Well, anyway, I lost that alignment. I had to guess at it, and it made it. It functioned just fine, but it was really hard to get a full magazine dump out of it because of the misalignment that I never really totally regained because of that little boo-boo. But here is the solution. I would go down the length of the barrel after that, and this is an improvement that works really well. Just go down and drill some holes every so far, and you put a drop of super glue in the hole. Capillary action pulls it in and spreads it out. count to 10 and it's stuck for real. So this was my first experimentation with that. It worked really well. That was the solution. I applied that also to the full-blown BB machine gun and haven't had any issues. The full-blown machine gun applies everything I learned here, and it functions really, really well. So let's talk about this magazine. It's really simple. Here's the follower. Right now the follower is sticking out. That's it right there. And to load the thing is real simple. You just kind of push it back out of the way. And of course there's nothing holding this, so if for some reason it gets away from you, you're going to have a whole bunch of parts that are going to be like the missing sock in a dryer. You may find them in a year and a half, or maybe never, but they're going to be missing for some time. Okay, so I get this pushed back. There's a guide rod behind the follower, and there's just a little bitty hole right here drilled in the rod, and I just lock that off like so. And now everything is pulled back, and you can funnel your BBs in there till she's full. And it's ready to load. You can possibly see here the hooks cut in this end cap to grab the lugs on the magazine shroud, magazine sleeve. There went the screwdriver. And kind of line that up, give it a little twist, and then simply pull your pin. Now, if this was actually loaded, this guide rod would move up, and just this little tapered part here would be sticking out of the end, which is naturally it disappeared now because it's not full of BBs. If it was, that little tip would be sticking out here, and you could just glance at this thing and see that it's loaded and ready to charge up and have some fun. So that was kind of a nice little feature that just kind of happened. I wasn't really planning on that, but it works really well. So here comes the disappointing part, where I show you just how stupid this is. That's all there is to it. This is a steel TIG filler rod is what it is, TIG wire. It's which you can get at the hardware store. It's handy to keep around. It's nice and straight. It's a good grade of steel, and it's usually pretty straight. So definitely better than coat hanger material. You don't have to use wire for this. I also use I really like if you can find a 1/8 high density polyethylene rod, that's actually a little better. I like it a little more flexible. They don't seem to hang up as bad. This was an experiment to see if this would work. It did, but I think you can do better. And then the follower is just super glued, capillary action, right? Super glued right on the end, and these followers are easy to make. If you have a problem with them, you can make these in about 10 minutes. You'll also notice here that there's a number of springs. These were special order. It took me like 3 months to get them. No, I'm just kidding. These are clicky pen springs from the dollar store. You go buy the retractable pens from the dollar store, tear them to pieces, keep the spring, throw the rest away. It's actually cheaper than ordering springs. You get like 5, sometimes 8 of them for $1. So it's pretty easy to put together a nice collection. And then between the springs, because these springs really they can be a little bit of a pain. And they like inside the magazine, they like to thread themselves together and get hung up, and they're constantly, so your spring is constantly changing length on its own. So that's why I've got the little spacers cut here. So these spacers go between the springs, and it's just another little piece of 3/16 brake line tubing, the same as the follower on the end of the guide rod. And it was a little bit of trial and error on these. You know, I started off, well, all I need is a sliver. Well, the sliver didn't really work because they would cock inside the magazine and get hung up and drag and hang up as you were feeding, so you wouldn't get a smooth flow of ammo. So I thought, well, maybe I'll go equal to the diameter of the guide rod. Well, that made it better, but it didn't work. So the magic number is equal. You want them to be at least as long as the actual diameter of the tubing you're using. So this is 3/16, so these are about 3/16 long. Probably a heavy 16th at 3/16. So just a teensy little hair longer than the actual diameter, and that solved the problem. So that's the magazine. And just a little, you can see also here the capillary technique at work. There's a little hole drilled, you can see it, a little hole drilled right here and right here in this end cap. And so put it together, fit it up the way you want it, put you a drop of super glue in here, capillary action sucks it in, and this is on there, so it's all good. Let's get rid of the follower. And the diaphragm. The diaphragm I cannot, this is put together. One thing about this unit, once you put it together, you can't just break it down into all its basic components because it's all epoxied. Really, if it's working good, why would you want to take it apart anyway, right? Go out and have some fun with it. And the diaphragm you can see here is a little bit smaller, but virtually identical. There it is, moving up and down. And again, the return spring is just so you can do burst fire. This is really stupidly simple as well. So let's talk, but once it's all put together, it doesn't come apart. This is all, I could take the blowgun off the back, but matter of fact, not much holding that on. Sometimes it doesn't take much, right? But that's it. I cannot take it apart any farther than this easily. It would have to be cut apart. Anyway, so the diaphragm parts, what's it made out of? How does it work? Well, it works like any diaphragm. Again, and remember, BB is the valve, so the BB is the valve body that drives the operation of the diaphragm. And this one's not as easy to see because I've cut this thing apart so many times it's getting cloudy. Another thing too with super glue, you know, it throws vapors and vapors. Wear disposable glasses, safety glasses when you're messing with super glue. That's the new modern way. They do fingerprinting now because it sticks to fingerprints. So if you're wearing good prescription glasses that you don't want to get ruined and you have any kind of fingerprint or contamination on them, the vapor from the super glue will stick to those glasses and it's never coming off. You'll have permanent fingerprints. So wear a pair of disposable, the cheapest safety glasses you can get. So if that happens, you know, you're not out a whole lot. Anyway, so that's kind of what's happening to this clear acrylic right here. But you can see the tube in here. And this tube as well is specially designed to leak so that when there's no BB in the barrel, this barrel is short enough that instead of creating back pressure and not operating, it'll actually generate its own vacuum without any help from a vacuum generator. That's the beauty part of this design right here, is it's even simpler than the BBV machine gun version. It'll generate its own vacuum just from the air rushing over the hole where the feed pin comes through, and it'll pull the diaphragm up and the feed pin will punch a BB into the breech. Back pressure will also blow down through this little nipple here and push the diaphragm and the operating pin out of the way. So all by itself, so with no help from anything else. But, and our good old friend PVC pipe, that's all this is right here. But the rest of it, the rest of it is really simple. This is it. This is what it's made out of. This is just a couple of matching caps from a couple of vitamin containers. And they're just clamshell together. The stretchy part of the diaphragm itself is just cut from a nitrile glove. I've used 9mm and 7mm nitrile gloves. They both work equally well. They're both equally reliable. I think the 7mm is a little easier to work with. I didn't have any 9mm when I made it, so I used 7, which is what I had. And actually, I prefer the 7mm because it's actually stretchier than the 9mm. And durability-wise, well, the diaphragm in the submachine gun is probably going on 2 years old, and it's been messed with a lot, and it works just fine. So, so 7mm I think is probably a better choice, looking at it in hindsight. So, but that's it. So you just grab your scissors and cut you out what you need to fit this. You know, you might want to let it set around for a day or two to iron the wrinkles out a little bit. And then when you look on the inside of this, you don't actually see the stretchy part of the diaphragm itself. You actually see a hard plate there. There we go. Moving good. And then they're cut smaller than the stretchy part, and it's sandwiched between two of those. And that's just made out of a for sale sign that I got at the hardware store, right? It's made out of thin, pretty rigid plastic, really. I mean, the smaller the parts are, the more rigid they are. So this is plenty rigid for what I'm using on the diaphragm. And when it's all said and done, your diaphragm kind of looks like the woofer cone on a loudspeaker, you know, like on your home stereo, or your if you've got a sizable wireless Bluetooth set of speakers, something like that. So it's more like a rubber surround on a harder diaphragm, and that works really well. It's been working out great. The operating pin, I suppose you could make that out of plastic if you were using airsoft for steel BBs. Not so, I don't think so much. So again, your 1/8" TIG wire comes into play. And the operating pin in the submachine gun is, well, both of them really, they're both under 1 inch long, so it only takes a little piece. Now in the submachine gun, here's another thing I learned. You could probably see how this one has got get a little white background on this. There's a taper ground on this, and I thought that would be a good idea at the time when I built the submachine gun. In effect, I've determined that probably was not a good choice, because this point, if this is just a little bit off, will actually grab the BB off center, and the pin will want to wobble off, and it will also push the BB in an undesired direction, and then now you got a jam. So your operating pin should just be squared off. Make it as square as you can, knock the burrs off, the corners, and call it good. Now you've got a nice flat surface, and it does a better job of punching a BB in the right direction. So that was another little thing that I learned on the submachine gun. So let's see, is there anything else that I wanted to say in this segment? So we talked about a little bit about safety topic of the day. Don't shoot anything that ricochets. Showed you how stupidly simple the tube feed magazine is, and how stupidly simple and the basic junk laying around to make the diaphragm out of. So that about covers it for today. Oh, I do have a little challenge. Those of you with BB blasters, I just thought about this during my morning walk, just yesterday, I think, or the day before. And I may have to build a blaster just for this purpose so I can have some fun with this myself. When the season gets right, take your BB blaster, maybe get you some 2-liter bottles and make you a little portable air tank out of the 2-liter bottles. Don't squeeze them too hard. I mean, don't put so much air in them that you blow them up. But go ahead and make yourself like a portable air tank. Go out in the backyard or the neighbor's yard, maybe. Don't trespass though, get permission, right? Load your BB blaster up with some kosher salt. Find you a pile of dog shit covered with flies and hose the flies down and wipe them out, right? I think about this bug assault thing and I'm thinking, you know, I'm not paying $45 for a bug assault when I think you could make one so simple and it would be like a saltpocalypse. A BB blaster would do a great job of that, or maybe your own salt blaster design, whatever. But that sounds like, because flies really just bug the hell out of me at certain times of the year, and so might be a good way of taking your revenge. Anyway, that's it today for the BBV design, BB machine gun and BB submachine gun. I'll see you on the next one. See ya. And here we go again. Come on, you. Cut it. Now this is a mystery.